What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. Oh, you know what? I got to switch these guys around. There we go. That wasn't right. Hope you all having a great Tuesday. Hope you all had a great weekend. As always, joined by Johnny down there, Anthony over there, Chris down there in the corner. As usual, this is the time of year, it's a little bit dead time. Not a lot to talk about, a lot of speculation and stuff about what's going to go on, free agents to target, all that stuff. The combine, obviously, as this begins on the 22nd, where they meet with players and everything. So next week, we'll have a lot more to discuss as we get into free agency, which is only a few weeks away. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Hit the thumbs up. It helps us out a lot. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you get all the notifications when we drop a video or we do our Giants Collective show. We're about 20 subscribers away from 7,100, which is awesome. We appreciate it. Yeah, that's pretty kick-ass. And as always, we want to give a big shout-out to Sleeper for sponsoring tonight's show. Check out Sleeper. It's the fastest-growing app out there. Over 11 million people use the Sleeper app. They have daily fantasy contests. They have player picks. You can get all your live up-to-date scores. And they're always coming up with more creative, innovative ways to test your sports knowledge, which now they've included a predictor market on top of the other two things, and you can also pick teams now. So there's a lot of things you can do with Sleeper, like I said, to test your sports knowledge. Use the link in the description and check out Sleeper because you'll have a lot of fun using it. So using the first topic there, A.J. Brown, who obviously is disgruntled in Philadelphia, and why wouldn't he be when you have Jalen Hurts throwing to the football because he's ass. I can't help myself. But Adriana, what do you think about A.J. Brown wanting to be a Giant? It's obvious the Eagles aren't going to go, hey, New York, you can have our player. But what do you think about the rumors saying he would love to play for the New York Giants?
I like the fact that we are a team that good football players want to be a part of. That is, I think, is great news out of all of this. Do I think A.J. Brown will be a Giant in 2026? Absolutely not. We all know Howie Roseman. We know what he does. He's not Joe Shane. He doesn't let guys walk and then let them go to the enemy and win a Super Bowl. He's not Jerry Jones making dumb decisions and scratching his head at 700 years old. So I don't think there's any world where, A.J. Brown gets traded to us or gets cut and then the Giants end up signing him. Not in 2026. We were just saying before we jumped on here that his contract is extensive. It's $72 million in dead cap money that the Eagles have this year. So I think it's pretty unlikely that they just go ahead and straight up cut him. So the likelihood of, again, him being traded to the enemy is pretty low, I would say. But I think the best thing that comes out of this is the fact that there are great NFL players who want to be a part of the Giants. So I think, as fans, we can take that as maybe we're finally headed in the right direction. I think most of us feel like that, if not all of us. But just a good reminder that, there are players out there who are going to look at the Giants and say, this is a situation that I want to be a part of. And if I'm a free agent and I'm deciding between here and the Raiders and the Titans and whoever, I'm going to the Giants because I feel like they're going to start winning faster and they have a better path to the postseason and beyond than some of these other teams. So I like that aspect of it.
Anthony, what do you think? I mean, do you think that players that want to now come to the New York Giants, think it has to do with Harbaugh? You think it has to do with Dart? You think it's a combination? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of both of those things. John Harbaugh is obviously an attraction point throughout his time with the Baltimore Ravens. They did attract a lot of great players through free agency. They made a lot of splashy trades, and they improved that roster every single year with superstars who wanted to play for John Harbaugh and the coaches that were under him on his coaching staff. So I do think Harbaugh is going to play a big role in the Giants having an active offseason. This is now his roster. It's not just Joe Shane's roster anymore. Obviously, he has some control as a general manager, but they're going to reshape the roster in John Harbaugh's image. So he's going to make changes. He's going to move on from certain players, and he's going to bring in his guys, whether that be a Tyler Linderbaum and Isaiah Likely or whoever else that John Harbaugh wants. So I think that is going to be the focal point of the offseason, bringing in John Harbaugh's guys. But I also think there's going to be guys who want to play for John Harbaugh that they're going to bring in, and that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And as far as A.J. Brown, I don't think he's a New York Giant in 2026. Could he be in 2027 or 2028? Who knows? We'll see. But I think this highlights just a greater sense of Eagles players no longer wanting to be in Philadelphia. And that's something that we can be excited about. A.J. Brown looked like he gave up on the Eagles very early in the 2025 season. Looked like he didn't want to be there. Looked like he was fed up not only with the coaches, but with the players as well. And I don't think that he's the only Philadelphia Eagle that feels that way. Obviously, Jalen Hurts being ass, as you mentioned, Bad Dog, has a lot to do with that. But in general, I just think Philadelphia's reign at the top kind of ran its course. I think those players are complacent. I think the coaching staff is arrogant and they rub people the wrong way, obviously. And I think the players now feel that way as well. So what that really means to me is the NFC East is wide open for the taking. I don't think that the Eagles are a lock to win this division again, like they have seemed to be over the last couple of years. And with the New York Giants rebuilding the roster in some ways, rebuilding the coaching staff entirely, and bringing in a proven winning head coach to stabilize the program, I think that the Giants could be a sneaky team to go worst to first, similarly to the Chicago Bears or the New England Patriots did this past season. So that's what I think this really highlights to me, the Giants being in a position to surprisingly compete for the NFC East this season.
Yeah, I actually read or didn't read an article, saw an article that actually said, the New York Giants, 2026 New York Giants could be the 2025 Patriots, which obviously that'd be incredible for us. I don't know if I'd go that far, but Chris, what do you think about, everything that was discussed already? Between
there's a 0% chance he's going to be a Giant. But I agree with what Anthony said about that. I think it's a clear sign that it's not just with A.J. Brown, it's with the entire team. It seems people see that the Eagles are a sinking ship. They had to pray people to come over there to be coordinators. They know I think a lot of Giants fans feel this way. They may be decent next year. They may be good, but I think they've peaked. I think they're on a downward trajectory. And A.J. Brown hasn't been happy there. That's been well documented, right? And yeah, some of it obviously has to do with the play calling, and some of it probably has to do with Jalen Hurts. But yeah, it's nice, like Adriana said, that a good player potentially may want to be a Giant. I think I know he grew up in Jersey. I think he grew up a Giant fan. I remember on draft night he was wearing a Giant shirt. So maybe that has something to do with, I guess, whatever he posted on Instagram. But there's no way in hell the Eagles would ever trade him to us. Maybe he's a guy in a year or two if he shakes free that could potentially sign here. But at that point, he's 30 or 31. As far as what the Giants are going to do with free agency, I'm sure we'll talk about that throughout the stream. And I think it's going to be Linderbaum. That's all I keep reading about. Obviously, the ties to Harbaugh. I think if they're going to bring in a big ticket outside free agent, I think he's going to be the guy that the Giants seem to be targeting. And it makes sense. I think he fits the blocking scheme really well with what John Harbaugh wants to do. But like Adriana said last week, it is a lot of money to pay a center when you have a young center like JMS on the roster. So we'll see what ultimately they decide to do. But that's where my head's at in terms of a big ticket free agent. I think they bring in a guy like Linderbaum at the center spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. A.J. Brown obviously will never be a Giant. The Eagles would never trade him here. And on top of that, I mean, again, when he's a free agent, you want to pay him being 30 years old. And obviously he's had some, dust-ups with the quarterback, although it seems like a lot of people have a dust-up with Jalen Hurts. It's their offensive coordinator. It's some of the players. I don't really know what goes on. Obviously, being a Giants fan, I love to fuck with Eagle fans and make fun of Jalen Hurts. It's, kind of my job to do that. But again, it's because they make Jalen Hurts out to be some elite quarterback, which he is not. He's very good at what he does, but he's not an elite quarterback. He's never been an elite quarterback or an elite talent. He never will be. But A.J. Brown's not going to be a New York Giant. But what is fun is, again, you take a look at the coaching staff. A lot of opponents have good things to say about Jackson Dart, like a guy that I love. We'll talk about later, Nakobe Dean. I'm gonna say Nakobe Dean every damn stream until he's a Giant. But he even said, Jackson Dart's very gritty. He's tough. He's a lot like Baker Mayfield, which I think Anthony might have compared Jackson Dart to before Jackson Dart even played. I think that was Anthony's comparison. And they are very similar in their attitude, the way they play the game. They're hard-nosed. They're going to fight for every yard. They're tough. They play physical football. They're not afraid to take a hit, which sometimes they should, veer away from that. But it's just the way they play the game with a certain kind of toughness. But Jackson Dart is also very cerebral, has great poise and great instincts. And you would think that a guy like A.J. Brown could flourish with a guy like Jackson Dart, vice versa. A.J. Brown's obviously not going to be a Giant, but it's not to say we can't get another really good receiver in here. And when you talk about the offensive line, Maui Goa, or whatever his name is, I can never say his name right. Maui Goa. If you added Tyler Linderbaum and you added the tackle from Miami at 5, if he made it that far, I don't think he's going to. Can you imagine how good the line would be if they had?
We don't sign Illuminor, but yeah, that if they don't bring back Illuminor, I said it last week. That's where I think we are headed. If we don't bring back Illuminor,
I mean, if they sign Linderbaum, I don't think they're going to bring back Illuminor.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And you guys mentioned Illuminor probably fits well in Tennessee. Brasillo's there. We work with Dable. Tennessee's got a lot of cap space, so it's very possible. One thing that's not on the option, like on our topic board, I kind of wanted to talk about, and I didn't realize it because I wasn't around today, and I just saw like the stuff on our group text. What do you guys think about, and let's start with Anthony, about Joe Schoen and his demotion, if you want to call it a demotion or like change of position is what I call it. What do you think about that?
I think it's tough to figure out what the truth is on this reporting because obviously Pat Leonard is somebody that I think we've all criticized at one point or another on this show. And this report really comes from Pat Leonard. We talked about it on Fireside Giants yesterday, and a lot of viewers were split. They don't know if they believe Pat Leonard or not, but Pat Leonard said that Joe Schoen has been relegated to handling just scouting. Is there an element to truth to that? Maybe. Do I fully believe it? No. He's the general manager. I don't think he's the regional scout or the director of scouting. He is the general manager. Now, Donna Ponte was brought in for a few critical reasons. She's replacing Kevin Abrams. That's number one. Kevin Abrams, if you read about his career history, if you're unfamiliar with what he did behind the scenes, he played an integral role in the negotiations for a lot of the signings that the Giants made during those 2 Super Bowl runs. He was the team's negotiator, and he's been that for 30 years. When he left, the Giants needed to bring in a new character to negotiate contracts and handle the salary cap the way Kevin Abrams did. That's Donna Ponte. Donna Ponte has been also working in the NFL at both the organizational and at the NFL office level for 30 years, handling salary cap, negotiating CBA, handling the NFLPA, and doing all of that kind of stuff that Kevin Abrams was doing. So she's taking over the role of Kevin Abrams. She's not taking over the role of Joe Schoen. It's very easy to look at this and say, okay, Joe Schoen was nerfed. And I'm sure in some ways he has been. I do believe his role has been adjusted. I don't think he's working in the same capacity that he was now that John Harbaugh is there having potentially final say over the roster and all details. And I do think it's important to note, not only is Donna Ponte clearly the right-hand woman of John Harbaugh here, but she also does have a long-standing connection with Joe Schoen. She worked with Joe Schoen in the front office with the Miami Dolphins under Bill Parcells back in the 2000s. So this, to me, is not a separation of power necessarily. It's just tweaking things to make a more collaborative decision-making process where it's not just Joe Schoen making the decisions. It's not just John Harbaugh. It's not just Donna Ponte. It's all 3 of them working together. Yeah. So, yeah, that changed his role. And now he's going to lean more heavily into his background and his primary skill set of scouting. That's where he started. That's where his skills come from. And he's got a lot of connections, networking within the league through scouting. So when he's handling scouting, he's relegated to handling scouting. I just think it means he's going back into that realm a little bit more so. And now there's a little bit more of a separation in terms of the collaborative process that you're going to see unfold for Schoen, Harbaugh, and Aponte. But has he been relegated? Maybe to some extent, but I don't think it's really like that. I just think it's more of a collaborative process.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think?
I think Pat Leonard's full of shit. I don't think he's been relegated to just being a scout like he implied on Twitter. Has his role changed? Of course. You brought in John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, we all know, is the type of coach like similar to when the Broncos brought in a Sean Payton. He's a guy that's going to command a lot of power and a guy that's going to have a lot of say in terms of what the team does. And has Joe Schoen lost some power? I'm sure he has. But like Anthony said, I think they're still going to work collaboratively. Joe Schoen's still going to work the phone with trades, right? John Harbaugh's not going to be one that is orchestrating those trades when you trade up. So to insinuate that he's just a scout is nonsense. He's going to work, I'm sure he's going to get some help in terms of structuring of contracts and things like that. But Joe Schoen's still a lot more than a scout. He's a general manager. He's just a general manager that has a somewhat reduced role due to the fact that you have Harbaugh on this team, and he commands a lot of that power. So, yeah, he's certainly not just a scout. I know a lot of Giants fans don't like Joe Schoen, understandably so. I think all of us at one point at least wanted to move on from Joe Schoen. But, yeah, he's a lot more than just a scout. He's still the general manager of this football team.
Oh, John, what do you think about Pat the Rat and saying Joe Shane is just a scout? Pat the Rat.
I would like to know why Pat Leonard hates Joe Shane so much. Like, I know as fans, we don't like him because we don't think he's great at his job and whatever, but I just feel like Joe Shane must have done something to personally piss off Pat Leonard with the way that he just continually attacks him with these insane articles. Now, I think, like we've all discussed, there's probably some semblance of truth in there that John Harbaugh is going to make the final decisions on draft day when it comes to contracts, when it comes to free agents and all of that. But to say that Joe Shane is not doing any of his GM duties that he was doing before, I think is kind of crazy, because if you look around the NFL, there's a reason that there's a GM and a head coach. And even when John Harbaugh was the head coach for 18 years for the Ravens, they still had a GM, and the GM still did their job as the manager. It's unlikely, unheard of, and insane to have one person, John Harbaugh, be the head coach and the GM of an organization that's literally a clusterfuck. Like, he's coming in here and have to completely revamp everything, and we didn't even get into players and contracts and the draft and stuff like that. So there's only so much that, as a new hire, yes, he's been around for 18 years, but there's only so much that he's able to do, especially in one offseason. I mean, we saw Bill Belichick, who was with the Patriots for a very long time, started to take on some GM duties, but he worked with the general manager. He wasn't the GM and the head coach. And honestly, look where that got them. It didn't really work out so well. So I think there's a reason that there's two separate positions, but they work very closely together. And I think there's just somewhere in between. Like, I think it's highly unlikely that Joe Shane is doing everything that he did when he was the GM when Dable was here. And I also think it's highly unlikely that he's just a scout. So, you know, the truth is somewhere in the middle, I'm sure, but there's no way that John Harbaugh is basically the GM and the head coach of this team. It's just, I know he's good at his job and he's done it for a long time, but like, that's not how this works. And people generally don't have success when they do that. And that would be insane for anyone, not just John Harbaugh.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. Joe Shane's role obviously changed. There's no question. John Harbaugh comes in here. We knew that was going to be a thing immediately. John Harbaugh was going to want to have some kind of power. He came in and made it known he wanted to report to ownership and not have to go through Joe Shane. So Joe Shane knew he might have to take a step back. But to say he's relegated to being like a scout is fucking ridiculous. Like Anthony said, he's the GM of the team. He's going to be the GM of the team, but he's also going to work with John Harbaugh probably a lot more, and probably did have to relinquish some of the power to John Harbaugh with good reason. That was a big drawing point for John Harbaugh coming here outside of the $100 million contract that he got. Obviously, Harbaugh deserves to have some kind of power. He's been in the league 18 years. He's a very winning head coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He's in the playoffs pretty much every year. You want to get a guy like that. You want that guy to be the head coach of your team. You're going to have to give him some benefits. You know, he's going to have some caveats. He's going to have more power than you would give a guy like a Brian Dable. Yeah. But that doesn't mean Joe Shane is going to be relegated to just that, like a head scout. He's not going to have any say in what the Giants do as far as signing players and trading players and drafting players. So I agree with Adriani. It's somewhere in the middle. But, you know, Joe Shane is not just a scout. It's not like he's just sitting back and that's his only job.
And by the way, Baddog, that's not just specific to Joe Shane. Like, if they were to fire Shane next year, if a GM came in here, John Harbaugh is still going to have a ton of say on what, as long as he remains the head coach for the New York Giants, and what they do in terms of the draft, in terms of construction of the roster, the coaching staff. So I think it would be the same situation if Joe Shane was fired next year and they brought in a new GM. John Harbaugh would have a ton of say on what this team does, just because of the power that he commands with how successful of a head coach he's been throughout the league.
Right.
And I do think that part of the reason Don Aponte was hired is because that could be an internal successor for Joe Shane if they do move on from him next year. Don Aponte's got a hell of a resume if you really read through what she's accomplished. And she has interviewed for several general manager jobs in the past, most notably with the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh interviewed her a couple years ago before he went in a different direction. So while I don't think this is a move to necessarily get Joe Shane out of the building, is it also insurance, a protection plan, a succession plan, potentially, if things go haywire this year? Yeah, I do think it could be. So I would keep an eye on Don Aponte. Again, she has a really impressive resume.
I agree, because Joe Shane doesn't have a contract extension. So this is the last year of his contract. So he's kind of, I mean, if things do go haywire and they are bad, again, Joe Shane probably gets his walking papers, and maybe Aponte is appointed GM, or they go in a different direction. But like Chris said, that's not going to change John Harbaugh's role. You're not going to bring in a different GM and all of a sudden give all the power to the GM and take it away from Harbaugh. That's not going to happen. Somebody, I was live last night. Somebody actually asked me about this, and I never even thought about it. To go to the next topic, Tyreek Hill. Is Tyreek Hill an option for the New York Giants, Chris?
Is he an option? I suppose he's an option, but do I think he'll come in? No, I think if he's going to sign anywhere, I think the Chiefs make the most sense, right? I mean, he's played with Pat Mahomes. He obviously works in that system. They're a team that if they get him, who knows if he could be back to the way that he was a few years ago, but I'd be shocked if the Giants brought him in. I recognize when he's on the field and he's putting in the work. He's one of the more talented receivers in the league, but he's injury prone. He's had issues off the field. I don't feel like he's the type of guy that John Harbaugh and the Giants would look to bring in. I think I could see maybe the Bills, the Chiefs, like a team like that, potentially, maybe the Ravens. But I think the Chiefs make the most sense for Tyreek Hill if he's going to play next year.
Audrey, what do you think?
I was going to say I would add the Titans to that list because I think what we've seen from Dable is that he is so laid back about stuff like that. And look, Tyreek Hill is a competitor. It's why he was seemingly upset that he had to deal with Tua Tagovailoa as his quarterback every week before he got injured, and why he was going on those weird Twitter rampages and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up with the Titans, like with Cam Ward, with Carmen Brasillo. If they take Jermaine Illuminor and they build up this offensive line, like he's the speedster, like he could fill what Malik Neighbors did in our offense under Brian Dable. So I could totally see that happening. I don't think he is going to be an option for the Giants. I think the biggest reason for that is, can you imagine him and John Harbaugh in a room together? Because I don't see that going well. And Harbaugh's big thing was like, it's football all the time around here. And Tyreek Hill is notorious for doing other things and having other issues like off the field. And I just think if Harbaugh has the opportunity to build this team the way he wants it, then Tyreek Hill is absolutely not on that list. Aside from the fact that he's coming back from a knee injury, and the Giants' number one wide receiver is also coming back from a knee injury. So I just think it would be crazy for them to go out and try and pay Tyreek Hill when, like, you don't even know if him or Neighbors, like supposedly Neighbors is going to be ready, but God forbid there's some sort of setback and Tyreek Hill's got, this bad knee surgery. It seems way too risky, and like, it's not a good fit for us.
Anthony, what do you think?
I personally wouldn't completely rule it out. I think that the Giants are going to try and make some splashes this offseason, and Matt Nagy loves Tyreek Hill. If you go back and you do some research on Tyreek Hill's early years in Kansas City, that first season that he was there, they pretty much only used him as a gadget player, and he was a damn good one, and as a kick returner. But it was Matt Nagy, if you read about it. Matt Nagy is the one that said this speed cannot be limited to playing a gadget role. He needs to be used as a wide receiver. And so he kind of transformed Tyreek Hill's role in the offense and was the catalyst to him becoming the elite player that he became in Kansas City and in Miami, obviously, as his skill set continued to expand. So I think that there's a high level of respect mutually between Tyreek Hill and Matt Nagy that could attract Tyreek Hill to Nagy, and that could make Nagy say to John Harbaugh, hey, this is the guy that we need to open up this offense. This is exactly what I need to create that explosive attack that I've had in the past with Kansas City. So I think there could be some interest in that regard. Now, obviously, the concerns that everybody mentioned are valid. The knee injury is significant. Is he even going to be ready to play at some point this season? Is he playing in 2026? I don't know if that's a guarantee. If he is, it's most likely not by week 1. So you're talking about a mid-season addition on a 32-year-old wide receiver whose knee just got torn in 3 different ligaments or something like that. It doesn't sound like he's going to be a big impact player. But then again, could he be a veteran mentor player who contributes in a more limited fashion and just kind of helps Malik Neighbors navigate the early portion of his career? Maybe. But is he really the character fit for that role? I'm not entirely sure.
When you brought up mentor and Tyreek Hill, that doesn't go together for me. So yeah, I don't see that.
At the end of the day, the Giants stay away from guys who have these kinds of off-field issues, and obviously everybody knows what kinds of off-field issues I'm talking about. It doesn't seem like a realistic signing for that reason in particular. I think Tyreek Hill is one of the most electric players we've ever seen play in the NFL, and if he were totally healthy and hitting the open market, yeah, I'd be interested if I was the New York Giants because he is a game changer. But he's not completely healthy, and that's why he's hitting the open market, and he's not the player that he used to be. So that's why I don't think he's ultimately going to sign with the Giants.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be an absolute long shot for all the reasons you mentioned. He's not 24 anymore, and he did have that was a major knee injury. That wasn't like, he sprained a ligament. I mean, that guy pretty much had his knee bent and all over the place. We saw Cam Scadler's ankle. I mean, Tyreek Hill's knee was kind of, he didn't have a compound fracture where the bone came through the skin, but it was a brutal injury. And yeah, he's 32 years old. Adriana mentioned our best receivers coming off a torn ACL, and Tyreek Hill has definitely had off the field issues. So again, while I think everybody's an option and maybe it is somebody they look at, I don't think they look at him very long. I just don't think he fits here for all the reasons you guys mentioned. Character issues. The Giants are usually big on character issues, and he's got some things going on off the field. And again, he's on the downside of his career. And when you're 32, when you're coming off a serious knee injury, it's a little bit different than if you're 24, like Malik Neighbors. Obviously Neighbors is young coming off a knee injury. You still don't know what Neighbors is going to be. And yeah, I don't even think Tyreek Hill is going to be ready to play by week 1. Who the hell knows when Tyreek Hill is going to be ready to play? So that might be a guy they look at. Maybe if they can get him for minimum or less, like minimum or a little bit more. I don't see Tyreek Hill being a Giant. I don't see that happening. I'd be shocked if that guy was wearing a Giants uniform by the end of the year, or I'm sorry, at the beginning of the year. Which brings us to the next point, which is the top free agent targets. And I'm sure we've discussed this before, but Adriana, is there a couple free agent targets that you really are looking at saying the Giants really need to bring this guy back or bring this guy in?
I am going to be so upset if they don't re-sign Jermaine Illuminor. And I know that, look, if part of it is because he wants to follow Carmen Brasillo and we throw as much money at him and he says, I don't care, then that's fine. Obviously, we don't have any control over that. But if Jermaine Illuminor is like, I had such a great experience being with the Giants and I'm willing to stick around because I trust this coaching staff and whatever, I want to spend more time here, et cetera, then throw money at him. Like everyone's talking about Tyler Linderbaum. Why are we throwing money at a center when our right guard and our right tackle are both going to be free agents? Like, sorry, you're not going to convince me that spending $20 million on a center is going to be a good idea. Like, I'd rather spend $1 million on Austin Schlottman, let him be the backup to JMS. Well, JMS is here for one more year, solidify the right side of the line, and you can worry about it later. To me, it just doesn't make any sense to go after a center when we don't know what we're doing on the right side of the offensive line. And we have a new offensive line coach. We have Carmen Brasillo. This is a little bit of a different discussion, but we are talking about a whole new coaching staff here that, I don't know how things are going to go. So anyway, Jermaine Illuminor is the number 1 on my list. Like I said, I know the Giants might not have full control over that, but if they do, I would like to bring him back. Number 2 for me is Daniel Bellinger. I mean, I have a couple different guys, but I just think that bringing him back, you bring in Isaiah Likely too. I mean, I don't think Daniel Bellinger is going to cost you a lot of money, but I think between the two of those guys and Theo Johnson, you've got a good rotation there of tight ends. I mean, we've talked a lot about the fact that they have really extended this coaching staff and brought in guys who have a lot of experience because their focus is on player development. Someone like Theo Johnson is really going to benefit from a new coaching staff like that. And I think the same could be said from Daniel Bellinger. We have seen really great capability and physicality out of him. He's got decent hands. He can make, some pretty impressive catches, and he's a decent blocker. So I just think for a couple $1 million, bring him back. I really would like to bring back Cordell Flott too. I think we don't have any depth at the cornerback position, and, they can go after someone in the draft if they want. There's talk of Marlon Humphrey potentially being available. I think that's great, but it's still not enough for me. Like, do we really need help at the cornerback position? Who knows what they're going to do about Tay Banks, but if they can pay Cordell Flott a reasonable amount of money, I mean, again, he's coming off his best year with a new coaching staff who's going to focus on development, with a new defensive coordinator who's going to put him in a position to succeed. I think there's a lot to like about what you can get out of Cordell Flott. Plus, he's still very young, and I think he's really about to hit his prime. So if we can get a reasonable deal for him, I would be happy. Let's see. Anyone else? That's probably it for now.
Anthony, what do you think? Is there certain free agents you want the Giants to bring in here or bring back?
I would like to see them re-sign Jermaine Illuminor for sure. Let's see what the price tag looks like. A couple months ago, or maybe about a month ago, we were talking about Illuminor and how his price tag could reach towards 20 million, but now the reports are saying that it's going to be closer to like 12 million. If that's the case, yes, extend him and also add more help on the offensive line. I think that Tyler Linderbaum is the obvious name that everybody's going to connect to the New York Giants. He's an elite run blocker. He's a Harbaugh guy. He's an enforcer. And he's young. He's 25 years old. But that is $20 million per season on a center. I'm still on the fence about it. Like, I like Tyler Linderbaum, and the more that I talk about it, probably the more that I like it. But I'm still always going to be a little bit hesitant to pay a center nearly $20 million per season or even more. So I think that's a bit of a question mark, but he's probably the guy that I think the Giants are going to pursue. But then if you look at the free agency market, there's low-key a lot of offensive guards out there. I would like to see the Giants obviously upgrade at right guard with Greg Van Roten being a free agent, but I don't even think that they should rule out making a signing at left guard as well and potentially taking the massive amounts of salary cap savings that they could get from moving on from John Runyon, because there seems to be better and cheaper options on the free agency market this offseason. For some reason, if you go on PFF or wherever and you look at the offensive guards set to hit the free agency market, there's just a lot of talent this offseason. It just seems to be that year where a ton of contracts are expiring at the same time. Wyatt Teller being a name who's connected to the Giants coaching staff. Teller was with the Cleveland Browns, of course, for the past several years, but Mike Bloomgren was there as their offensive line coach this past season. And I mean, I'm looking at the projected contract from Pro Football Focus. They're saying 1 year, $3 million for Wyatt Teller. I mean, he is 31 years old, but I mean, you sign that in a heartbeat. You even overpay. I'll pay him $6 million on a 1 year contract. I'll double that if that's what you got to do to get a 3-time Pro Bowl and Wyatt Teller out there. But there's just a lot of talent at guard hitting the market this offseason. So I think the Giants are kind of going to reshape and rebuild this offensive line. I saw somebody say if they sign Linderbaum, they're going to have to move JMS to guard. You can actually save almost $4 million in cap space by cutting JMS this offseason. So if you sign Linderbaum, I think you're just cutting JMS and moving on from him and taking that cap relief and probably reinvesting it in a brand new offensive guard. So
or maybe look to trade him. You might be able to trade him.
Maybe you actually might be able to get something for JMS. Yeah. He's still a young player, and he's gotten better every year. But he's undersized, and I don't know. He hasn't been the player people want him to be. But there's a lot of corners, too. A lot of linebackers this offseason as well. And I do like the idea of Isaiah Likely because you see these projected contracts for Wan'Dale Robinson. I'd love to have Robinson back. But I'm telling you guys, I think he's getting over $20 million per season. Now PFF has updated their market value for him at 21 per year, which is where I put him a couple weeks ago on this show. Actually, a couple months ago on the show, I was saying he could get up to 20-something. So if that's the case, I think you're going to have to get cheaper at that playmaker position, and you're probably not going to be able to re-sign Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Isaiah Likely can play as a de facto wide receiver. His snap share was basically split between slot receiver and tight end last year. So you're killing two birds with one stone. You're improving your wide zone blocking in this Greg Roman running scheme that they're going to implement with Isaiah Likely. He's a really good outside zone run blocker. And you're also kind of offsetting the loss of Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot with Isaiah Likely. So I think he's an option as well. But there really are a ton of options. This is a robust market this offseason in free agency. The top-end talent isn't there, and that's why people are saying that it's not a good free agency class. But the Giants weren't shopping just for top-end talent any year. They're going to be looking at those bottom barrel guys as well and trying to find value. And I actually think there's a lot of value in this year's free agency class.
Chris, what do you think?
I think we are going to sign Tyler Linderbaum, and I understand a lot of the points where people are scared to sign him. I think it's just a matter of the fact that I think that Harbaugh specifically, obviously, due to the fact that he was a big part of the reason why the Ravens drafted him, is a very good fit for the type of blocking scheme that he wants to run for this team. He's one of the best run blockers in the NFL at that position. I think he graded out third in the league this past year. So I know he has his limitations in terms of pass blocking, but I feel like the type of offensive line they want, he's probably going to be a good fit for it. And his ties to Harbaugh, I think we're going to sign him. One guy that I've seen mentioned in terms of an outside, we'll get into some of the, as you guys have talked about, some of the inside guys that we may retain. I think it's pronounced Nahshon Wright out of the Chicago Bears. I've seen a lot of people bring him up. He's 27, but he's coming off a very good year last year. I think he had like 5 or 6 interceptions for the Bears. If it's not him, I think they should sign somebody in the secondary at that cornerback spot. I don't know if you want to shop at the top of the market there, but I think they need to bring in some talent at that spot in the secondary. I think we could all agree that's a big weakness. I know Baddog wants the linebacker from the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll see if ultimately we go that route. If they don't, I think they certainly need to draft a linebacker relatively early in this year's draft, because that's clearly a massive hole for the Giants as well. In terms of the pending free agents for the New York Giants, I want to bring back Wan'Dale, but if they do not bring back Wan'Dale, I love the idea that Anthony brings up, because when I look at this wide receiver market, it is thin. I mean, they're all old veterans like Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill, guys we're talking about. I'd rather go with a dual capable tight end and try to get creative with the offense and spend my money that way rather than pay for an overpriced, outdated wide receiver. If they end up letting Wan'Dale go. But in the ideal scenario, and I understand $21 million is a lot of money. I think he's a really good fit for the scheme that Nagy wants to run. He's durable. He's young. He has a rapport with our quarterback. But I understand it's a salary cap league and money plays a factor. So I'm going to understand if they let him go. But in an ideal world, I would like Wan'Dale back. But I completely agree with what Anthony said. If they let Wan'Dale go due to his market, I would tend to lean more towards a guy like Likely than paying for one of these overpriced older wide receivers.
Yeah, it's crazy because, again, we talk about the draft and there's talk about Caleb Downs or Matt. Again, I don't think Maui Noah is gonna get to the Giants. But the prospects of adding a Tyler Linderbaum, which, Chris, I tend to agree. I think they, again, it's a lot of money, and I understand the risk involved in that. But if it's not for Creed Humphrey, Tyler Linderbaum is probably the best center in the league, and he's worked with Harbaugh, and Harbaugh liked him and drafted him. And again, he drafted Kyle Hamilton. And I know Caleb Downs is a smaller safety, but still, you know the positions that Harbaugh likes. So I could definitely see them going that route if they don't bring back Illuminor. And to John's point, I would at least like to see the Giants offer Illuminor a contract. And like she said, if he says, you know what, I want more money and I'm going to go to Tennessee and follow Brasillo and Dable, at least you could say you offered him the money. I love Wan'Dale. We've talked about how Wan'Dale kind of fits the Zay Flowers part of what the Ravens did, but at $21 million, man, that's a lot of money. When you, again, one of the wide receivers, and a lot of them are old, but instead of a guy like Tyreek Hill, what about a guy like DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins probably isn't going to cost you that much money. I know he's 33, but the guy's got freaking, hands like Velcro. Like, he ain't going to drop passes. We need a guy like that. It'd be nice to have a good leader in the locker room. DeAndre Hopkins kind of fits that role as well, because you don't want to spend $20 million on a wide receiver, but depending on where the Giants go, because we need a wide receiver, we need linebackers, we need another safety or another corner, and more linemen, obviously. We have a lot of holes here. So depending on what they do, and free agency is going to give us a really good indication of what they're going to do on drafting.
I'm not against signing a guy like Hopkins for a mentor role, like Anthony brought up about Tyreek Hill earlier, but he's not a guy that replaces Wan'Dale for me. He's not a guy that I want in the starting lineup. He's a veteran that, maybe is a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 on the roster if they go that way.
Again, I just don't know where – I don't know how you're replacing these guys unless you're paying them an absolute fortune. It's just they're in a tough spot when it comes to wide receivers. Just like I said, looking at their depth, it sucks. And our best receivers coming off a torn ACL. So the wide receiving core worries me probably more than any other spot on this team going into 2026, the way it looks now. And then, I'm going to say it every freaking stream. I want Nakobe Dean to be a damn Giant. He shouldn't cost that much money. I know he's had injury issues, but God, when the guy's healthy, he's a fucking beast, man. He can blitz. He's great against the run. He's just a dynamic player. What is he, 25 years old? And I would just love to take a guy from Philadelphia. And again, he had good things to say about Jackson Dart, but I like Nakobe Dean. I like Linderbaum. We really would love to have Wan'Dale back. I love Wan'Dale. I think he's really good, but again, that's a lot of money. And yeah, Chris, to your point, we need cornerbacks too, but we got a good young core, but we still have a lot to work on. And that's why you bring in John Harbaugh. That's why you let him have the power he does, because like Anthony said, you need a program builder. That's what Harbaugh is. So out of all the names you guys and lady mentioned, I mean, I can agree with pretty much all of them. There's a lot of options. We have a lot of holes. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where they go in a couple of weeks. We're gonna have a lot to discuss.
I think they're gonna be aggressive. I don't know if they're gonna be shopping at the top of the market for these positions, but I think old signs point to that they're gonna be aggressive. I know a lot of people look at the salary cap and they say, how are they gonna do it? They'll find a way to do it. They're gonna be aggressive. John Harbaugh, 62, 63 years old. They're gonna find a way to be aggressive. They have their quarterback on the rookie salary. Now is the time to do it. I think the Giants will be active in free agency. I don't know if they're necessarily going to shop at the top of the market outside of potentially Linderbaum at the center spot, but I expect them to bring in a lot of guys that'll be difference makers next year in free agency.
Can't find this.
Also, guys, a name, I don't know why no one has talked about him yet, who I'm pretty sure is a free agent, is Dallas Goedert. Am I wrong about that?
I think you're right. I think
Another player.
Goddard is a free agent.
I mean, I know they're going to go after Likely, and they're not going to sign 2 tight ends in free agency, but in the off chance that Likely goes elsewhere, Dallas Goedert likes to catch touchdowns against the Giants.
Yeah, Alex has talked about Dallas Goedert nonstop on Fireside Giants. He's like obsessed with the idea of signing him. So I knew he was a free agent because of that, but I also love that idea too. I think getting a veteran in that room who is just a red zone threat, somebody who just catches touchdowns, like you said, Adriana, that makes a lot of sense.
Let's take some Eagles. Let's take Goddard. Let's take Dean. AJ Brown obviously can't be a Giant, but let's steal some of their people. That'd be great. You know, what the hell? Why not? Dallas Goedert is a good freaking tight end without question. But again, you talk about Isaiah Likely because he has the connection with Harbaugh. Same thing with Hopkins, played there last year. So Harbaugh obviously likes his guys he's familiar with. Like I said, in a couple weeks, I think what is it, March 9th, March 13th? I forgot exactly, March 6th. I forgot exactly when the tampering period begins. It's at the beginning of March, and we'll know a lot more in a couple weeks which way the Giants are going to go. Jason, thank you so much. Appreciate you. He says, I'm just not excited about Linderbaum signing. Is he really $20 million better than JMS? Schlottman. I hope someone outbids us for him. JMS improved, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I feel the same way. I think they should re-sign Schlottman on a 1-year deal. You know, if JMS has a better year with the new offensive line coach and they can help him out, then you extend JMS the following year, you know, or you get someone in the draft and, you know, kind of worry about it then. But my thing is like, until we have the right side of the line figured out, I just can't be excited about a $20 million center when like we don't have a right guard and a right tackle.
And I get that perspective 100%. Here's my mindset on Linderbaum. Let's start with the thing that I really like about him, outside of the fact that he's a tremendous run blocker. I know a lot of people point to the pass blocking limitations. He's very young for a free agent, right? He's 25 years old. He's a guy that could be a high caliber starting center for this team for the next 4 or 5 years. And you bring up JMS. Well, if JMS plays well next year, he's going to command $20 million a year as a free agent, right? If he has a really good year, we all know how free agency works at the center spot. So if Harbaugh prefers Linderbaum and he feels he's the best long-term answer for this team at that spot, I'm going to roll with it. He's a guy we all know what the Pro Bowls mean in today's NFL, but he's made 3 Pro Bowls. He's known as one of the better centers in the league. I would think that obviously Harbaugh would feel he fits the blocking scheme. So that's my argument about that. Like if JMS were to have a really good year this year, he's going to get paid a lot of money next year, and the Giants would have to pay him. So if he prefers Linderbaum, I'm cool with it. He's 25 years old. He's been durable. So I'm fine with it.
I think the best argument that I can make for Linderbaum, and the reason why I've warmed up to the idea, is you're kind of would you rather here? Would you rather have Andrew Thomas paired with Jermaine Illuminor being a 32-year-old above average right tackle? Or would you rather for the next several years have a top 5 left tackle and a top 3 center in the NFL? Right, so you're essentially pairing 2 elite talents. If that's your foundation that you're building the offensive line around for the next 3 to 5 years, having an elite left tackle and an elite center, 2 of your 5 positions on the offensive line are now elite. Any other way, you're not achieving that other than signing Linderbaum this offseason. You're not going to get an elite starting guard, and you're not going to get an elite starting right tackle, because I love Jermaine Illuminor, but he's not an elite right tackle. He's a good one. So if you want to build the offensive line with 2 elite talents, there's the argument for Linderbaum. And then the other one that I would make is just what the Giants offense is going to look like. It's very clear they're going to be run heavy. That's why they brought in Greg Roman as the senior offensive assistant. That's why they're interested in Tyler Linderbaum. They're trying to match personnel to scheme, and the scheme is just going to be a lot of RPOs, quick passes, and smash mouth football running up the middle with Cam Scatterbo. And if that's the case, I think you're going to look at Tyler Linderbaum. You're going to fall in love with him if you're the Giants coaching staff, because he is a perfect scheme fit. And then you're also, I think, again, I'm going to go back to it, probably looking at John Runyon a little bit sideways and considering moving on from him. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's a better pass protector than run blocker. I don't really know if he is a scheme fit for this team, and you can save a ton of cap space by moving on from him. But those are the arguments I make for Linderbaum. It's really age and elite talent.
Yeah.
It's kind of the argument that we've made before about other guys where regardless of positional value, sometimes you just need to collect the most elite talents that you possibly can and then just find a way to figure it all out
and
afterward.
it's rare that you get a guy that is near the top of his position, hit free agency, regardless of the position that he plays, that is still only 25 years old. Usually those guys are retained. So I certainly get the argument against it, especially if you're someone that believes that JMS could continue to improve and become a really good center in the NFL. But I'm fine with it if they elect to spend some money on Linderbaum because, like I said, the way I look at it, if they roll with JMS this year, they're going to have to pay him a boatload of money next year if he has a good year. So if they prefer Linderbaum, he's 25, do it now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with Anthony. The attraction for Linderbaum is he's young. He's probably the second best center in the league behind Creed Humphrey. And if you're going to go with a run-heavy offense, Tyler Linderbaum's strength is run blocking. So obviously the Giants are going to go that route. And it makes all the sense in the world because we've discussed this before too. The players are going to bring in have to do a lot with the blocking scheme, which is why we talked about maybe they're not interested in Illuminor because he doesn't fit what they want to do as far as a blocking scheme goes with totally different coaches. It'll be very intriguing, but I do think, I don't know that Linderbaum will be a Giant, but I do think they're going to make a major swing at him and try to get him in here. And Chris, you bring up a great point. If JMS has a really good year, he might not get $20 million, but he's going to get $16-18 million. And at that point, I mean, what's the difference? You'd be without a center. You'd have to give him the money.
Well, look at Wan'Dale. I mean, Wan'Dale was probably looked in a similar way to the way JMS is looked at right now before last year. He's going to get $20, $21, $22 million we're talking about. What do you think if JMS is a top 10 center next year? What do you think he's going to command if he becomes a free agent? You know?
Yep.
So
and I actually think one final argument that I'll make on Linderbaum, it's a similar argument that was made when Xavier McKinney hit the open market. Xavier McKinney had question marks about positional value, but he was a 24-year-old elite talent at a devalued position. I wanted the Giants to sign him because he was a young elite talent. I didn't care about the positional value in that case, but the Giants did, and that's why they didn't sign him. This time around, I don't think they're going to care about the positional value. I think they're just going to see elite young talent on the open market. Let's take him. And looking back on it, they should have re-signed Xavier McKinney despite the lack of positional value at safety. And I think that you can make the same argument here for Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what the hell the Giants do. Jermaine, thank you so much. Says, do you guys prefer Reese or Sonny Styles for linebacker? Also, which receivers do you like, Tate or Tyson? Last, where is your hyperlink for more likes?
I like Reese a lot as a player, but I don't, at least from what the scouts have said, and in terms of his size, I don't really view him as a traditional middle linebacker. I think he's going to be a guy that's kind of a hybrid and plays a lot off the edge. So if you're thinking of him as like your traditional middle linebacker, I don't really think he projects as that. And I don't think the Giants will be drafting him with their pick at number 5.
I don't think he makes it to us anyway, as far as Reese goes. What about Tate or Tyson?
I don't think they'll be drafting either one of those players. I won't rule out the wide receiver. Who's the one with the injury history? It's
Tyson,
right? Yeah. So from what I've read, Tyson's the guy with the higher ceiling, but he has a much riskier, injury history. But I don't think the Giants will be taking either one of those guys, as I've said, and maybe my opinion will change after free agency. Let's see where they spend the money and what this team looks like. But right now, my mindset is I think they're going to go line if they don't bring back Illuminor, or they're going to go with a guy like Caleb Downs at the safety spot. That's where my head's at right now.
Yeah.
And I think that Sonny Styles is a very exciting player. If you do some research on him, I read Pro Football Focus had him going to the Giants in a mock draft recently, and then they had a chart of statistics of his collegiate profile playing in coverage compared to Fred Warner, and the numbers were almost identical. So as collegiate linebacker prospects playing in coverage specifically, he is among the best that PFF has ever charted, comparing him strictly to Fred Warner, who is the best inside linebacker for my money in the NFL right now. So if you're getting a player that you think could be a Fred Warner level player, I don't care about, again, positional value. People say inside linebacker isn't that valuable. If you're getting a Fred Warner level player, you take that player. So Sonny Styles is a guy that I'm heavily interested in if I'm the New York Giants at number 5 overall, regardless of whether or not they keep or cut Bobby Okereke. Sonny Styles could be literally a decade-long starter on the interior or on the middle of your defense if you take him at number 5 potentially.
Yeah, I like Styles and Tate. I think Downs is probably the pick for them at 5. I think that's most likely if he's there. But if he's not, love Sonny Styles. I also really love Francis Mauigoa. I think if he's there, he's probably their second choice behind Downs. But for me, the injury history with Tyson is a little scary. So I really like Carnell Tate. Love what I've seen out of him. And I think he'd be like, the thought of Tate and Neighbors is very exciting to me, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm trying not to get too excited about it.
Yeah, I don't think the Giants go that direction, but I would not hurt my feelings if they drafted Carnell Tate because, again, I just think our wide receiver core is so thin right now. And the prospects of a healthy Malik Neighbors and Carnell Tate with Jackson Dart and a good offensive line. You have Scadaboo and you have Tracy. I mean, the offense could actually be really formidable, and it would be nice to have a couple of really good outside receivers, which is just going to make your tight ends better and make Theo Johnson a lot better as well. So it's interesting. Sonny Styles, same thing. I mean, we need linebacking help in the worst way. We haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round since Carl Banks in 1984, which is the year I started watching the Giants. It was a long fucking time ago. But, you know, again, I do think it's – I know if he's there, and I think it's Caleb Downs if he's there. Now, I have a Bengals fan on my channel all the time, and they say the Bengals really need safety help. So there's no type. So, I mean, you know, we talked about – a lot of Giants fans are like, should they trade back? I don't think they will. But that's intriguing if Cincinnati really liked Caleb Downs and the Giants went back to 10. I don't know who the hell would be there at 10. I don't think they're going to trade out. But I don't know what they're going to do. It's because we have so many positional needs and we have a whole new coaching staff and everything is so different, including getting rid of Kevin Abrams, bringing in Dawn Aponte, having Harbaugh have more power than any head coach has had, probably since Bill Parcells. I'm just very intrigued about what the Giants are going to do because it's been a completely different offseason. They went way outside the box from what they normally do. So I think everything – there's nothing like that. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. There's like – I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say. So I don't know. I'm going to say there's no stone, they're not going to leave no stone unturned is what I'm trying to get out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, before we go any further, I want to give a big shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring tonight's stream. Again, check out Sleeper, the fastest growing app out there. They have daily fantasy contests, college football, college basketball, NBA, and a lot more. You can get all your live up-to-date scores. You can also do some player picks, and Sleeper's always bringing more innovative ways to test your sports knowledge. They have now added a prediction market on there, and you can do some team picks as well. Check out Sleeper. Use our link in the description below. Open an account and test your sports knowledge on Sleeper. Also, get a thumbs up for us. That'd be great. We have almost 500 people in here, which is awesome considering it's right after Valentine's Day, and there's not a lot to talk about. So if we could get the 200 likes, that would kick ass. But great crowd tonight. We appreciate all the support. And as we go forward, we're going to have a lot more to talk about. It's going to get very exciting here in about 3 weeks or so. So really looking forward to that for sure. Jason, thank you, buddy. He says, how do you guys and gal feel about Carnell Tate? If he's there at 5, he's my pick. Great route runner and hands catcher, 6'3" as well. Could be a wide receiver 1. Would allow Malik to get 110% healthy, gives Dart weapons.
It'd be an exciting pick. I mean, I wouldn't be upset if they did it. I just don't think they will. I think Harbaugh is going to focus on the trenches and trying to improve this defense at their weaker areas. But we'll see. I mean, I'd be excited for the pick. It would be an exciting pick, pairing them opposite Neighbors. And as we've talked about, the wide receiver position is definitely a position that they need to pay heavy emphasis on. It's Dart's second year. We can't do to him what we did to Daniel Jones and fail him by not giving him the proper weapons. Neighbors is a question mark going into next year. You don't know if he's going to be his full self, possibly for the full season. We saw how long it took Saquon Barkley to get back to full form after the same injury. So I know it's a different position, but it's not a position that they could ignore. I just don't necessarily think they're going to take one at 5, but I mean, it would be an exciting pick for sure. You look at a guy like JSN, what he does for the Seahawks in that offense, like a guy like that could definitely help this offense tremendously.
Yeah. I think free agency is really going to give us a direction of where they're going in the draft. But I do think they're going BPA, whoever's the highest on their board. Yeah. If Tate and Downs are both there and they value Tate more, I don't think Harbaugh would, but I mean, who knows? Like I said, there's going to be no stone left unturned. I don't know what direction they're going to go in because this has been a very, the Giants have been extremely predictable over the last 20 years. They're not so predictable anymore. So who the hell knows what they're going to do? But we're here for it and looking forward to seeing the direction they go. Rich, he says, I don't know if Tyler is worth killing the right side of the line.
I'll say, though, I don't think you need to sacrifice the whole right side of the line for Tyler Linderbaum. First of all, Greg Van Roten is, 35?
Yeah.
You're moving on from him anyway. You're not relying on Greg Van Roten as your right guard. The Giants have to sign somebody there regardless. And Tyler Linderbaum, sure, it's going to be around $20 million per season, but it's going to be a long-term contract. That money's all going to be pushed to the back. His cap hit this year could probably be as low as $10 million.
Probably less.
So it's going to be minimal. You're going to be able to re-sign Jermaine Illuminor at that $10 to $15 million price point and sign Tyler Linderbaum. But I think, Chris, you said, or maybe Bad Dog, somebody said, is he still even a scheme fit, Jermaine Illuminor, if they're going to be playing this run-heavy offense? Maybe they don't look at him as a scheme fit anymore. Maybe they want a guy who's more of an enforcer in the run game at right tackle. And obviously they've got a new offensive line coach, a whole new scheme coming in. I think they're going to build the scheme, or they're going to bring in the personnel to build the scheme properly. And so if they feel like Van Roten's too old and not a good run blocker, if they feel like Illuminor's not a great run blocker, they're going to make changes regardless, especially with all these expiring contracts. So, but again, I don't think you have to kill the right side of the line to sign Linderbaum. I think you can get Jermaine Illuminor and Tyler Linderbaum under contract pretty easily.
I agree. And even if you don't bring back Illuminor, you could always spend the 5th overall pick on a tackle if you really like one there. So just because they sign Linderbaum doesn't mean that they're going to ignore the remainder of the offensive line. And the way that they structure these contracts, like you said, Anthony, a lot of people will see the $20 million price tag, but you're not signing Linderbaum to a 3-year deal. He's young. He's 25. He's getting a 5-year deal. You'll easily be able to space that money out to make room if you want to bring back an Illuminor. I don't think by signing Linderbaum, it's going to prevent you from signing Illuminor, which would be a shorter type of contract due to his age. So I'm not too concerned if they sign Linderbaum. I don't think that prevents them from bringing back Illuminor. If they don't bring back Illuminor, I don't think it'll have anything to do with Linderbaum. I think it'll have everything to do, like you said, with scheme fit, that they don't feel he fits the type of scheme that they're looking to run. And I don't know if they're going to feel that way or not, but that's why they didn't bring back Carmen Brasillo. I think he was tremendous here for the New York Giants, but they didn't feel the type of offensive line, the scheme that Brasillo wanted to run, fit with what they were looking to do. So being that Illuminor seems like a natural fit for Brasillo's offense, he followed him to multiple locations. It leads me to believe it's at least a possibility that he may not be back, but I don't think it would be because we signed Linderbaum.
Yeah. Linderbaum and Illuminor, that'd be pretty fucking awesome.
I'd be fine happy with
but
that.
Again, I mean, if they don't, they could spend the number 5 pick on the tackle. Mary Noah, Spencer Fano. There's the Giants. I think Linderbaum is going to be a Giant. My gut feeling is they're because, like you guys just mentioned, you can put the Giants have a lot of cap space in 2027, so you can push that back, being that it's going to be a longer term deal. They're not going to bring Linderbaum in here for 2 years. No. So it'd probably be a 5-year deal, seeing that he's 25 years old, and you could move some of it to the back and move the cap around. So I'm anxious to see what they do. Jason, thank you again. He says, oh, go ahead, Adrian.
Real quick, I just want to say, like, if they sign Linderbaum, but they also sign a veteran right guard or right tackle, I can get on board with that. My concern is that they're just going to be like, okay, well, we have Marcus Bowe, so he's going to be the right tackle, and then we'll just draft a right guard. And that's where I'm like, then I'm going to panic.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that.
Right. We don't need 2 starters on the right side of the line. And I like Marcus Bowe. I think that he's going to be a good tackle. He needs a veteran next to him. Like I need a veteran right guard. So if they do Linderbaum plus a right guard or a right tackle, I'm on board. I'm just really concerned that it's going to be one or the other. And that's what I'm worried about. But I feel better knowing from Anthony that there is going to be a good veteran guard market out there come free agency because we desperately need one of those.
Completely your point about Marcus Bowe. He's an exciting prospect. A lot of Giants fans were happy when we brought him in the 5th round. He showed flashes early on last year, but he's still a raw player, and I do not want to see him being the starting right tackle in Jackson Dart's 2nd year, learning a new offense. That cannot happen. So if they don't bring back Illuminor, that's why I'm going to pound the table for them to take a tackle at 5th overall, because I don't think you could trust Bowe to start the year next year at the right time.
I think if we know anything about the Harbaughs, they both love, like Chris does, the 300-pound men. So I don't think there's any way And I like Marcus Bowe, but I agree. You don't want him as your starting right tackle as a 5th-round pick, protecting your second-year quarterback. And I don't think Harbaugh would go into the year with that either. I just don't see that happening. But again, you never know. But I could see them signing Linderbaum and drafting a tackle 5th. I could definitely see him doing that too, which, again, I would not have a problem with that because think about how young your offensive line is at that point. If you bring in a 25-year-old Linderbaum and you have a rookie playing right tackle, it's 5th overall. The only thing that worries me, because we know Evan Neal was supposed to be his big-ass freaking great start at 7, and the guy was total shit. So that it can be concerning as well, because as well as they look in college, it doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL. You know what you're getting with Jermaine Illuminor. You know what he is. There's no question mark there. So, and yeah, to Audrana's point, you definitely want a veteran. If you did start Marcus Bowe, you definitely want a veteran next to him. But I just don't see that happening. I think Harbaugh and the Giants are going to really look at building this offensive line up. Because to Chris's point, we've mentioned this a lot too. You don't want to do to Dart what you did to Daniel Jones. Get a really good offensive line in here. Find another really big play wide receiver or a big play tight end or somebody, and then let's protect our quarterback and get him some weapons so that he can be what the Giants wanted Daniel Jones to be, and that's quarterback for the next 15 years.
Yeah,
but you can't make the same mistakes, and I don't think that they will. Jason, thank you again, buddy. He says Runyon and JMS played well. Why cut them? Well, because it's cap space situation. I mean, you save a lot of money by cutting them. This is not a teardown situation with Harbaugh. Continuity is important for O-line play. Just upgrade the right guard.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I mean, if they replace JMS with Linderbaum, that's one thing. But I would be surprised if they cut Runyon because then you've got, 1, maybe 2 starting offensive linemen, which would be unacceptable.
I don't see that happening. I think Runyon will be a Giant next year.
So do I. I
think he's a sneaky cut candidate. I'm not convinced that Runyon is a scheme fit. He's a better pass protector than he is a run blocker, and the Giants want to run the ball. And he's almost 30. He's not 30 yet, so he's really not old. But is he worth the cap hit? I mean, I just don't think he's that good of a player. Like, he's at best average, and his cap hit is nearly $12 million this season, and you can save $9 million if you cut him. So
my whole thing, Anthony, though, and I get that perspective. And if he's not a scheme fit, I'm not going to oppose Harbaugh. He's trying to build. Whenever a new head coach comes in like him, he's going to build the team the way that he sees fit, and he's going to bring in guys that. But my argument against getting rid of Runyon, I mean, you're going to have an entirely new offensive line at that point, and that's going to be an adjustment period. We all know that it takes time to build a cohesive unit for an offensive line. So I am personally in favor for keeping Runyon one more year on the left side. But I get the $8-9 million in savings. I understand it.
And if they keep him, I'm not going to be upset about it. I could even see them potentially lowering the cap hit by extending him for a year if they wanted to do it that way. That could be another way. So this could really go either way with John Runyon. I just think, he's not a great player. And like I said, I look at the guard market, and I'll list some of the names. You've got David Edwards out there at left guard. He's projected to get a contract at $11 million per year, which is about what John Runyon gets, and he's a significantly better player at 28 years old. Isaac Samalo out of Pittsburgh, he's a pretty damn good player. He's going to be cheaper than John Runyon because he's older, but he's definitely an upgrade. Joel Bitonio, also old, 34 years old, but definitely an upgrade over John Runyon. Elijah Vera Tucker's got bad injury history, but he's a good player when he plays. Dalton Reisner, I think, is probably half the cost of John Runyon and probably the same caliber player, if not better. So, again, the point that I'm essentially making, there's just a lot of talent out there this year. It seems to be the year to need a guard in free agency. And if the Giants are intentional about building through the scheme and making sure that the guys on that offensive line are scheme fits, what's really the difference here? The offensive line is being torn down and rebuilt anyway because you're probably going to have a new start at right guard, right tackle, and center.
That's fair. That's fair.
Why not one more at left guard if you think you can upgrade that position?
And I want to shout out Big Dash. He's a content creator. I know he's in the chat, and I think he brings up a solid point. He says, I don't get the lack of faith in Bowe. You trust the rookie to protect Dart, but not a second-year guy that's already protected Dart. Maybe it's just I don't know, Dash. First off, we're talking about a top 5 pick. That's a guy that you feel to have an immediate impact if you're taking a tackle that high. And there's 2 tackles in this draft that people feel worthy of that. I understand Evan Neal did not work out, and I know a lot of Giants fans look at that and they say, but I feel like those guys are a much higher caliber tackle if they end up taking a tackle with number 5 overall. So I would expect them to have an immediate impact. And I look at a guy like Matt Parrott. A lot of Giants fans were super high on him after his rookie year, and they just thought he was going to step in and he was going to be a great tackle. I'm not saying Bo can't be good. There's plenty of good 4th, 5th round tackles in the NFL. I just personally am not in favor of rolling the dice with a guy that I still feel is a raw prospect that many felt was a better guard prospect coming into the league. He showed glimpses last year, but as the year progressed, I also think he showed a lot of holes. And that's not to say he can't improve. He's a young player, but I would rather have more of a sure thing, whether that be bring back Illuminor or bring in a bona fide stud with that 5th overall pick.
And I'll just add to that. I'm a huge Bo fan. I think that he is a starting caliber player at some point in his NFL career, and I'm hoping that it's with the New York Giants. But I think it might be at guard, and it might be at left guard if they decide to move on from John Runyon. Potentially, he could be the succession plan there because I think he is a better fit at guard. But he is a good player, and I'm not discounting the fact that he could start at right tackle, left guard, or right guard. He really could fit almost anywhere on this offensive line. That versatility is crucial, and he definitely looked good as a rookie. I really like Marcus Bo, so I'm not discounting his ability to start next season at all.
I mean, to your point, Anthony, if they cut Runyon, maybe you could slide Marcus Bo over there because you'd be playing him next to Andrew Thomas. So you're really not going to get a much better veteran to play next to. And if they brought in a Linderbaum, obviously you have a great center, so he'd be between 2 really good linemen, and that could definitely help him out as well. So you could save money by cutting Runyon, and maybe you want to slide Marcus Bo to the guard if you feel that he could be really productive there. There's a lot of options for the Giants, and again, there's a lot of needs. So I'm anxious to see what the hell they're going to do. Like, I'm ready to go. Like, I know everybody in the chat's ready to go. You guys are ready to go. Like, I'm ready to see what the hell they do. Enough speculation. I want to know. You know what I mean? It's like the buildup. You know, it's like a couple weeks before Christmas when you're a kid, and it's December 10th. You know, you're like, oh, yeah, I can't wait till Santa comes. I can't wait. Like my kid for, you know, he's like, I can't wait to you get really excited to see what the hell you're getting on Christmas morning. So as Giants fans, it's the first time probably in a long time we've been, I don't want to use the word exciting, but maybe optimistic about what they could be doing here as far as building a team. So I'm just very curious. And again, because everything has been very different. They've went way out of the box. They're very unpredictable. So I'm just curious to see what direction they go in. But I have to trust these guys until they give me a reason not to. Jermaine, thank you. He says, in a perfect world, we would sign back Illuminor and Flott and also sign Linderbaum and likely my bonus trade for Waddle. And well, you wouldn't have to trade for Dean. He's a free agent. And Jalen Waddle, I wish.
That to me, I'm by no means am I predicting we're going to get Waddle. I don't think we are. But that to me is more realistic than some of the other names we've brought up today in terms of the Tyreek Hills and the A.J. Browns. You have they could be completely trying to start from scratch and start over. I could see Miami potentially looking to trade Jalen Waddle. And I think he'd be a great fit here, especially if
I love Waddle.
Yeah, I'm not predicting it, but he's one name that I wouldn't be stunned if the Giants were to bring him in this offseason.
I wish, man. That'd be the best. He was my favorite receiver in that draft class, so I love Waddle. Grim, thank you, man. He says, there's rumors that Jermaine Illuminor's market isn't what he thought. Dunleavy, well, we don't listen to him, thinks that they sign him over a Wan'Dale and Flott, scheme, fit, and priced out. Wan'Dale's going to cost a lot. I don't know that they're going to bring in Wan'Dale. I know what Flott's going to cost. I don't know what his market
costs a lot because he's young.
Yeah.
He's the guy whose market I'm really struggling to project. Like, I feel pretty confident Illuminor is not going to get what people thought he was. I think that Wan'Dale is going to get more than people thought he was. And then with Flott, I'm like, is he going to get more or less? I think it could really go either way. He's like the total wild card here because he's 24. He had a breakout season, you know. But if you can bring him back reasonably, like $10 million per season, I think you'd do it. But I just don't know what
he's going to get more than that. I think he's going to get. I think in free agency, when you get even if it's an average player, if he's young, they get paid a lot of money. And I think Flott was slightly above average last year. He was solid. He was good for the Giants. Based off his age, somebody's going to be willing to give him, I think, mid-teens. I think he's going to get paid a good amount of money, Cordell Flott.
Be interesting to see what happens.
I would like him back, though, because we need all the help we could get.
Well, we don't listen to Ryan Dunleavy ever. Yeah. We don't ever listen to him. I don't anyway, because we all know he's a soft bitch. I don't know what to say.
I was going to say Saquon lover.
Yeah, he is a Saquon Glazer without question. And
Yeah.
we all know the story about he blocked me because I said that Andrew Thomas was more important than Saquon Barkley, and he blocked me for that.
He blocked. That's what you said that got blocked.
Yeah, I pretty much said maybe he didn't like the fact that I said a guy like you should know a left tackle is more valuable than a running back. Maybe he didn't like the way I phrased it, but it's true. Like a left tackle is way more important than a running back. I don't give a shit who the running back is. It's protecting your quarterback's blind side. Those guys get paid a fortune. Running backs aren't getting $25 million a year. Left tackles do. You can thank Lawrence Taylor for that, but regardless, they get paid a lot of money. That was what I said. Then he blocked me and people defended me and he goes, oh, I block people that are nasty. And like, I don't see where Baddog is ever nasty to you. That was really all I said was you should know that a left tackle is more valuable to a team than a running back. And he didn't like that. So fuck him. That's the way I look at it. Jason.
I didn't get blocked because when he tweeted out after Saquon's documentary that he was in it, I said, oh, everything makes sense now as to why you love Saquon so much.
Yeah. He's soft. It's not the first reporter to block me. Who was the other one? Justina Anderson also did it. Because I worried about her mental health. This woman was all just destroying Jackson Dart constantly and building up Shore Sanders. I'm like, I'm worried about your mental health. And then she blocked me. So I get blocked on Twitter a lot. That's why you got to follow me there. Shameless plug. I have a lot of fun on Twitter. I've been kind of dormant now because not much to talk about. But Jason Daggy says wide receiver had the fifth best rushing offense. He wants to go wide receiver. Had the fifth best rushing offense with Runyon, JMS, Jermaine, against some tough defensive fronts. Cutting guys just because makes more roster holes. Well, I mean, not if you're filling them. If you're cutting JMS, it's because you're filling it with Tyler Linderbaum. If you're cutting Runyon, it's because you're filling that spot with somebody else. I don't think they would just cut those guys and then not address those positions. Same thing at Illuminor. I think they're going to address that right tackle one way or another if they don't bring Illuminor back.
Hopefully they bring Illuminor back. I just, to what Anthony's point said earlier, I'm not sold one way or the other. I don't know if they're going to feel he is or isn't a scheme fit. And I think that's going to play a big part of it.
That's exactly it. I think the scheme has everything to do, and his price point. Like Anthony said, if it's 10 million, shit, bring him in here. 2 years, 20 million, 24 million, whatever. But if he's looking for more than that, if Tennessee offers him 15 million, I don't know that the Giants will go higher than that. Tennessee's got a lot more cap flexibility than we do. LOL, thank you. He says, give me Romeo Doubs. I like Romeo Doubs myself. Consistent player. And Jennings, big target in free agency or for wide receivers. Quay Walker, inside linebacker, draft downs at 5. And Anthony Hill, junior linebacker in the second round.
How old is Doubs?
He's young, 25, 26. He's not old.
I don't know.
He's got a weird market too that's difficult to project.
Like 12 million from what I saw. It was like 12 million a year.
I saw someone around 12. I saw someone around 16, and I saw someone say he's going to push towards 20. Again, he's just one of those players who's young, so it's hard to project whether somebody's going to think he's on the upswing and they're going to overpay the shit out of him, or if he's going to get his market value. It's tough, especially because the wide receiver market is so thin. He ends up getting paid a lot. You
look at his numbers, and again, these are just stats. And I don't watch Romeo Doubs every week. I'm a Giants fan. I've seen his games from time to time. His numbers look identical to a Darius Slayton.
They are. A lot of people compare him to Darius Slayton.
Yeah, like identical. So I don't necessarily know if they go that route, but he's young, so he's intriguing depending on what his market is.
Yeah, I'm not giving him 16 million a year.
No.
John, thank you. He says, I like Downs. I would be leery picking another tackle at 5 if they sign Linderbaum, then move JMS to guard.
So let me ask this about Caleb Downs. I'm sure we all heard John Harbaugh speaking to Mike Francesa about Caleb Downs. Did that give anybody else flashbacks to 2018 when Dave Gettleman did the exact same thing about Saquon Barkley and called him a gold jacket guy?
Touched by the hand of God?
Yeah, that's what he said about Barkley. He said Barkley could be a gold jacket guy, and then he took Barkley at 2. John Harbaugh just said the same thing about Caleb Downs. I'm like, that guy's the pick. That's who they're taking at 5. Right? I feel like I shouldn't know who they're taking in February, but I feel like I know.
My retort to that would be that he's also not Dave Gettleman. Like Dave Gettleman, I think we could all agree wasn't the smartest guy. Didn't pick up the phone for trade offers. I don't think Harbaugh's dumb enough to just give away the pick. That being said, Harbaugh has spoken very highly about the safety position, not just since he's come to the Giants. If you go back and look at some of the things he said with the Ravens, he feels like having a high-level safety core is very important to a modern-day defense. So I think if we're going defense, he's a very high probability we could take him.
The complete opposite of Joe Shane, by the way.
Yeah.
I
don't necessarily think his ceiling is as high as some of the elite safety prospects that have gone that high in drafts, but he's a great football player. And this is not known as for at least from what I've heard from the experts, this is not known as like a super high level talent draft at the top of the draft, as opposed to some other classes. I could see him falling in the top 5 or 6 if Harbaugh feels like he would fit our defense well. So I think if we're not going line, we're going with Downs.
I agree. I think those are the two things.
I think you don't hear a GM or a coach call a guy gold jacket guy unless he's enamored by him. And I will say, I've done a lot of research on Caleb Downs. I saw, I think it was Matt Miller of ESPN. I think it was him. He was talking about how when he was in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, he was talking to scouts and he was trying to get some comparisons on Caleb Downs and ask them, hey, he's the best safety that you've scouted since who? A bunch of them said since ever. A bunch of them said since Ed Reed. And so it's like he's clearly thought of as a potential gold jacket guy inside the NFL with those scouts. So, and I also find it funny if you look at his measurables, they're like damn near identical height and weight to Ed Reed. So
Ed Reed, yeah, because we mentioned
like John Harbaugh's noticed.
You mentioned before that he's not 6'4" like Kyle Hamilton, but yes, his measurables. Ed Reed was 5'11", so Caleb Downs is 6 foot, so they are very similar. And I agree. I do think that's their pick. I do think that's
he's just, when you watch him, he's just a damn good football player. Like he's just a really good football player.
And that's what we need here. Yeah. Football players, right? Yeah. We need football players. He's a football player. Cam Scadaboo is a football player. Jackson Dart is like we have some of those guys. Brian Burns is we're getting some of those guys now. Yeah. Nakobe Dean is a football player. Get Nakobe Dean in there. Mike, thank you so much. He says, hey guys, love the channel. Who is an under the radar signing that can be a huge help for the Giants? Appreciate you all. Anthony, you're the man. You got to say, how can I be the man when you're the man?
Yeah, how can I be the man when you're the man?
That's yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Mike.
What do you guys think under the radar?
I'll throw one under. This is really under the radar. If Wan'Dale Robinson walks, I would say keep an eye on Hollywood Brown, Chiefs guy. I think he's a good fit, plays out of the slot, veteran. He's not going to give you 1,000 yards like Wan'Dale did, but can he give you 400 or 500? Yeah, probably. And again, with the connection to the Chiefs, I think Matt Nagy would really like him in the scheme. So that'd be my guy.
I think that's a good one. And you've brought him up before because he's a scheme fit. He would be affordable. Like you said, he's not going to replace Wan'Dale, but he's a guy that you could get by with and try to improve the rest of the receiving corps. So I think that's a good one that not a lot of people have brought up. So he makes a lot of sense. If we don't bring back Wan'Dale, I could see that.
I loved Hollywood Brown at Oklahoma, man. I used to love him. I thought he was going to be amazing. But again, it's the type of guy you can bring in because if you're not going to pay Wan'Dale $20 million or $18 million, Hollywood Brown is going to cost significantly less. And again, he's a veteran wide receiver. Obviously not his asset was just the guy was just a freaking burner. Obviously you lose speed as you get older, but I don't know. I haven't really looked at like under the radar signings. I look at like the big signings and it'll be interesting. I just don't know what the hell the Giants are going to do. It's for once, I just don't think you can predict it. But although I do think the Caleb Downs is I think that's about as sure as it gets, if we're being honest. Just knowing how John Harbaugh values the safety. It is funny because it is the complete opposite of Joe Shane, and it would be interesting to see how they got along as far as that draft pick goes. Obviously, Joe Shane didn't value the safety because he didn't pay McKinney. We knew how great he was. Now, McKinney had a bit of a falling out with the Giants. He kind of called that Wink Martindale. He had the ATV accident, so maybe he kind of fell out of favor with the Giants. But I feel like Joe Shane just doesn't feel that's a lot of positional value. So you're not going to pay him $18 million a year, even though he's one of the best safeties in the league. Yeah. Is Joe Shane going to be, not that Joe Shane's going to have a choice, but I mean, is he going to push back at all saying, hey, I don't want to take a safety fifth overall?
Now, to be fair, now to devil's advocate to that, he also loved go, by the way, but the devil's advocate to that, he did draft the first safety in the draft, even though he was a second-round pick with Tyler Nubin a couple of years
True.
ago. And he spent a lot of money at the safety spot in free agency
True.
last year. So I wouldn't say he's completely neglected the safety position, but 100% about Shane is he's not a guy that traditionally would take a safety with a top 5 pick.
He's a positional value guy.
Positional value guy, yeah.
So it'll be interesting, but I do think that's their pick, honestly. Jason, thank you again, buddy. He says, my question is, if Linderbaum is so great, why are the Ravens just letting him walk out the door, especially with Lamar at quarterback? He is overrated, in my opinion.
That's a question that I asked as well in Fireside Giants. I'm like, listen, if the Ravens aren't willing to extend him, why are the Giants going to be willing to pay him $20 million? I think it's a valid question to ask. And I think really what it comes down to is positional value. And also I think that it's a much different salary cap situation. Technically, the Ravens have more cap space right now than the New York Giants, but the Giants have a lot more future cap space available, and the Baltimore Ravens don't, because they're about to once again extend Lamar Jackson and tie up a lot of their future money to him, and also some of the other young guys that they have on that team. So it's really just coming down to they have a shit ton of talent on that roster. The Giants don't have a ton of talent, so they can't afford long-term to pay some of their talented guys. Meanwhile, the New York Giants can take some of their talented guys that are going to shake free in free agency.
Yeah, like you said, Anthony, I think it's just two completely different situations in terms of where the teams are at. The Giants are in a position where they have a quarterback on a rookie salary. Like you said, if you just look at the cap this year, yeah, you may say that the Ravens have more money, but like Lamar Jackson makes a boatload. So I think the Ravens more so look at it like we could find a center in the draft, and that's kind of a position we have to sacrifice to try to maximize this roster for Lamar Jackson. We're going to prioritize other positions in terms of where we're going to throw our money at. With the Giants, they have a lot more money to be able to spend for the next 2 or 3 years to try to maximize a guy like Jackson Dart. So I just think it's two organizations that are in two different scenarios right now. Not to mention the new coach with the Ravens may not feel Linderbaum's as good of a fit there as Harbaugh, who obviously likes Linderbaum, would be with the New York Giants.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think scheme probably has a lot to do with that. You know, the Ravens obviously are going to have a totally different scheme. None of those guys are there anymore, so it's very possible he doesn't fit what they want to do there, and he's not the best pass blocker. He's a much better run blocker, so maybe the Ravens want to become a more pass-heavy team. Derrick Henry's obviously getting up there in age, but who knows? Who knows? So everything is up in the air as far as that stuff goes. With that said, that brings us to the close of another edition of Giants Collective, and as always, we appreciate you tuning in. Really good crowd tonight. If you haven't done so, hit the thumbs up. It does help out the channel a lot. Subscribe. We're almost at 7,100, which is awesome. We appreciate that very much. And the next few weeks are going to be a lot of fun, especially when we get to free agency. Want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Sleeper. As always, check out Sleeper, the fastest growing app out there. They have new and innovative ways to test your sports knowledge. You can get all your live up-to-date scores. They have player picks. They have daily fantasy contests. They now have a prediction market, and you can do some team picks as well. So check out Sleeper. Use our link in the description below and open a Sleeper account. That would be freaking awesome. With that said, for Adriana down there and Anthony over there and Chris down there in the corner, we will see you next time. It's Bad Dog, and we're out. Peace.